I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Lisa and I had been married for about 5 years. We met in college. She was a little firecracker, sharp as hell, and I was smitten from day one. Things weren't perfect, but for the most part I believed we had a good marriage. She was a little bitchy at times, sure, but who is? The problem was lately she'd been different, distant, cold even. I started noticing small things. She'd get defensive when I asked about her day, hide her phone more often, and would snap at me over trivial stuff. But I just blamed it on stress or work. She worked as a marketing executive and I was in finance. We'd both been busy, but I figured we'd get through it. Until I started noticing the messages. Little things. Texts that didn't make sense. Late nights on her phone, her hiding her screen whenever I came into the room. I caught her lying about where she was going, saying she was at the gym when I knew she was. Then there was the email, an email that was flagged by the department's security system. It was from her account, but it was to someone named Mark. I didn't recognize the name at first, but I had a sinking feeling. One night I was working late at my desk, going through some files, and I decided to check her email account. I know that sounds creepy, but I was desperate. When I logged in, there were messages, long, intimate, flushed-out exchanges between her and Mark. She was basically fucking him behind my back. I couldn't believe it. It was like a punch to the gut. I read through some of the messages, and the tone was so casual, so comfortable, like they were more than just colleagues. There were plans to meet, promises of secrecy, and enough flirtation to make me sick. It was right there on the department computer, accessible because she was too stupid or careless to delete the messages. How do you even process something like that? I felt numb, but also this boiling rage. How long had this been going on? I knew Lisa was a bitch, but I never thought she'd cheat on me with someone like her college advisor, William. He was a guy I actually respected, smart, accomplished, the kind of guy who'd help you out if you needed it. Turns out he was just another predator. I felt betrayed, angry, hurt all at once. And the worst part, I was the last to know. I kept thinking about all the times she'd lied, all the little clues I missed. And now I was stuck with this crushing realization that my wife had been sneaking around, screwing her advisor behind my back. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the screen, replaying everything I found. The trust was shattered, and I knew my world was about to change forever. The next morning, I couldn't focus. My mind kept circling back to those messages, that betrayal. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how. I mean, how do you even start a conversation about your wife cheating on you with her college advisor? It felt surreal. I was angry, yes, but also incredibly hurt. I kept going over everything I'd seen, trying to find some sense of logical reasoning, something to justify or explain. But nothing made sense anymore. Lisa was in the kitchen, making coffee like nothing was wrong. She was bitchy as usual, snapping at me when I asked how her night was. Fine, she shot back. What's your problem? I looked at her, trying to keep my voice steady, and I said, we need to talk now. Her eyes flicked with annoyance, but she followed me into the living room. At first I hesitated. I didn't want to believe it was true, but then I pulled out the email printouts I had. I laid them on the table, watching her face drain of color. She stared at them for a long moment, then scoffed. That's bullshit. You're paranoid, she said, even though her voice wavered. You're overthinking things, that's just work stuff, nothing more. She tried to dismiss it, to deny everything, but I wasn't buying it. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly. I decided I needed to push harder. I told her I knew about Mark, about the messages, and I wanted to know what the hell was going on. Her reaction. She burst into that typical bitchy attitude she always had when she was cornered. Oh, so now I'm a cheating whore. Really? Grow up. That's not what you think, just some stupid work thing. You're blowing it out of proportion. But her voice cracked as she said it, and her little lies didn't convince me. I'd caught her cold, and she knew it. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. How did she think she could just lie her way out of it? I wanted to shake her, scream at her, but I kept my cool barely. We argued for a while, her throwing out random excuses about how it's just sex, or he's just a friend, as if that made it okay. She kept insisting I was crazy, that I was imagining things, and that I should just forget about it. But I wasn't about to let her dismiss it that easily. I knew what I saw, and I knew she was lying. I felt my heart pounding, rage building so much I thought I might explode. The worst part was the look in her eyes, defiance mixed with guilt. It made me realize she'd been lying for so long, hiding this secret. I was furious, devastated, and feeling this sick sense of betrayal that cut deep. I wanted to believe it was all a mistake, but deep down I knew better. When I stared at her standing there acting like she was innocent, I felt like I was losing my mind. My whole world was crashing down around me. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I couldn't stay quiet much longer. That night, everything changed, and I started planning how to get my revenge. After that confrontation, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying everything: the lies, her dismissals, those stupid messages on the department computer. I felt so humiliated and angry I could barely breathe. I knew I had to do something, but I also wanted to be smart about it. I wasn't about to confront her again without a plan. I started digging, looking for more evidence, anything that could confirm what I already suspected. I remembered that I'd seen her on her laptop earlier that week, and I thought maybe I could find more. I managed to access her email again, sneaking onto her account late at night when she was supposedly working late. I found more messages, more from Mark and even some from William, the college advisor. Their exchange was even more explicit this time. They'd been planning to meet up, talking about sex, about the thrill of sneaking around. It was all laid out there in black and white. I felt my stomach turn. I knew I couldn't just confront her again without evidence. I needed to see her phone, her messages, anything that would make her stop lying. So I waited until she went to work one day and then snuck into the bedroom where she kept her purse. Her phone was sitting on the dresser, unlocked, because she was stupid enough to leave it out. I grabbed it. I sifted through her messages, her photos, everything. I found texts from William, explicit photo, even a few private conversations about their plans to meet. It was all there. I couldn't believe how reckless she'd been. She'd been so confident, so bitchy about how I was overreacting, but she was the one slipping up, sending pictures, making plans. I sat there for a long time, just staring at her phone, feeling like I'd been punched again. The pain was worse now because I'd caught her in the act, and she had no excuse left. She was caught red-handed, and yet she still tried to lie her way out of it. That moment, holding her phone, felt like I finally saw her for who she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who thought she could get away with anything. I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't let her keep lying, keep sneaking around. I decided I'd gather all this evidence, screenshots, messages, photos, and confront her with everything. But I also knew I couldn't stay married to her anymore. The trust was gone. I started to plan my next move, thinking about how I'd tell her I knew, how I'd face her even after everything. My mind was racing and the emotional toll was getting worse by the minute. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and above all, furious. I knew I had to act fast before she found out I'd been digging through her stuff. My next step was clear. I needed to confront her face to face with everything laid out. And I knew it was going to be one hell of a showdown. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept turning over everything I'd uncovered, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. I knew I had to confront her soon, but I also wanted to prepare myself emotionally. This wasn't just about discovering her affair. It was about everything I'd trusted, everything I believed in this marriage, crumbling in an instant. In the quiet hours, I started drafting what I was going to say. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some fool who'd gotten played. No, I was going to lay it all out, expose her lies, and see her broken. I decided that I would confront her the next morning, right after she woke up. No more hiding. I was done playing games. I wanted her to look me in the eye and own what she'd done. The thought of her trying to lie her way out again made me furious, but I also knew I had to stay calm. When she finally woke up, I was already sitting on the couch, clutching her phone in my hand. She looked at me with that bitchy smirk as if she thought I was joking. "Morning," she said, brushing her hair back. I didn't say anything right away. Instead, I slowly set her phone down and looked at her. "We need to talk," I said coldly. Her smile faded a little. "What now, seriously? Can't I have my coffee?" "First, no," I said. "You've been lying about everything, about Mark, William, your nights out. I saw the messages, all of them, and I know you've been screwing around behind my back." Her face twisted into this defiant sneer. "Oh, come on, you're overreacting. It's just sex, right? I don't see what the big deal is. You think I'm some sort of saint. Grow up." She crossed her arms and looked at me like I was the crazy one. That's when I felt my blood boil. I had all the evidence laid out, the screenshots, the photos, the emails, and I pushed them toward her. Her reaction, she just scoffed, rolling her eyes like I was some lunatic. "You really think this is going to change anything? I don't care. Honestly, I don't. Mark's better in bed than you ever were, by the way. You're dull, and honestly, I needed someone exciting." That hit me like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. This bitch was openly admitting it. I stood up, feeling this strange mixture of rage and sadness. "You've been cheating on me with your college advisor, William." "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice shaking. She looked flustered for a second, then she leaned back, acting like she didn't care. "Who cares? It's just sex," she said again with that bitchy smirk. "You're acting like it's some big deal. Seriously, you need to get over yourself." That's when I realized she wasn't going to own up to anything. She was just trying to brush it off because she thought she could get away with it. I felt my fists clench. My stomach churned. I was so furious I could barely speak. But I forced myself to stay calm to get through this without losing my shit completely. I told her I knew she'd been lying, that I'd had enough of her bullshit and I was done. Done pretending everything was okay. She looked surprised for a second, then went into full-blown denial mode. She started crying, yelling, saying I was twisted for digging into her privacy. I didn't care. I'd seen enough. I told her she was a liar, a cheat, and that I wanted her gone. That was the moment I knew I had reached the end of my patience. I packed some of my things, told her she could leave whenever she wanted. I didn't want her there anymore. The betrayal was just too much. She stormed out, bitching about how I was overreacting, how I was insecure, how I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I didn't care anymore. I was done. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and empty. But I also knew that I'd finally taken a stand. I was no longer going to be her fool. That was the beginning of my new life, one without her lies, her bullshit, and her betrayal. After she left, I was left standing there, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was racing. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about my life, was shattered in that moment. I sat down on the couch, staring at the door she just walked out of, and I couldn't help but feel this heavy mix of relief and despair. Part of me was relieved to finally know the truth, to stop pretending, to stop being blind to her bullshit. But another part of me was devastated. Her betrayal cut so deep I didn't know if I'd ever recover. I spent the next few days in a haze. I moved out of the house, got a temporary place nearby, and started sorting through everything she'd left behind. I made copies of the messages, the photos, all the proof I needed in case I decided to take legal action or confront her again. Honestly, I wasn't sure what my next step should be. I was angry, yes, but I also felt a profound sense of loss, like I'd lost my wife, my trust, my future. It was hard to focus on anything else. All I could think about was how someone I cared about had thrown another man's sex in my face, and how I'd been so blind to what she really was. The worst part, I kept replaying the moments when she lied to my face, that bitchy smirk she had when denying everything. It was like I'd uncovered a whole other person, someone cold, manipulative, and utterly selfish. I realized that her entire personality had been a facade, and I'd been so wrapped up in our life that I didn't see it. I started to question everything. Was I ever really happy? Did I even know her? The trust was gone, and it wasn't coming back. I knew I had to make a choice, either try to fix this or cut it off completely. Some friends told me I should try to save the marriage, to forgive her and move on, but I couldn't see how that was possible after all this. How do you forgive someone for cheating on you with your own college advisor? How do you rebuild trust after they've lied so blatantly? I felt like I was drowning in a sea of hurt and anger. I wanted revenge, not in some childish way, but in a way that would make her understand what she'd thrown away, what she'd lost. I began researching ways to make her regret her choices, to make her see she couldn't get away with it. I decided to make her life uncomfortable, even if I didn't go all crazy. I started by contacting the college and the department. I knew William's reputation, and I had enough proof to make trouble if I wanted. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her betrayal, to see that sneaking around with her advisor wasn't just some innocent fling. It was part of a bigger pattern. I also cut ties with friends who still trusted her, slowly peeling away the last remnants of her fake persona. Every step was a small act of revenge, reminding her that I knew that I had evidence and that she couldn't just lie her way out of what she'd done. My emotional state was a mess. I oscillated between furious rage and deep sadness. I'd loved her, or at least I thought I did. Now I was left with this bitter taste, knowing I'd been played for a fool. I spent nights staring at my phone, debating whether to call her or just block her number altogether. Part of me wanted to confront her again to tell her exactly how much she'd hurt me, but I also knew that this was the end. Whatever happened next, I had to move on, even if that felt impossible right now. In the end, I learned a hard lesson. Trust is fragile, and people can surprise you in the worst ways possible. I've realized that I can't fix what's broken. Some betrayals cut too deep. So I'm slowly rebuilding my life, piece by piece, knowing that I'll never forget what she did, but also that I can survive it. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find someone who's worth trusting again someday. But for now, all I want is to put this chapter behind me and move forward stronger than before. Looking back now, I realize that this whole ordeal changed me forever. I used to think I was someone who could trust easily, who believed in loyalty and honesty. Turns out, a person's true character is revealed when their secrets come out. Lisa's betrayal tore me apart, but it also forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about myself. I learned that I was stronger than I thought, not in the sense of revenge or anger, but in how I managed to pick myself up after everything collapsed around me. I still think about her sometimes. Not the woman I married, but the person she became. Cold, manipulative, and selfish enough to throw away everything we had for a quick thrill. I can't say I regret breaking free from her, because staying would have only meant more pain. But I do regret trusting her blindly. Now I'm more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of what I deserve. I realize that I don't need someone who lies and cheats, who manipulates my feelings for her own selfish needs. The real lesson here is that you can't let someone's betrayal define you, but you also can't ignore the warning signs. I should have seen it coming. Those little things she did, her defensiveness, the secretive phone calls. But I wanted to believe in the best of her. I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt, thinking she'd come around. But that was a mistake. People show you who they really are when they think you're not looking, and Lisa's actions proved she was never the woman I thought she was. Now, I'm focused on rebuilding my life. I've cut ties with the people who enabled her lies, and I'm working on trusting myself again. I've started therapy, not just to deal with the heartbreak, but to understand why I let things get so bad in the first place. I've learned that love and trust aren't things you give blindly. They're things you earn, and if someone proves unworthy, you walk away and never look back. To anyone going through something similar, I'd say this: don't ignore the signs, but also don't beat yourself up if you miss them. People are good at hiding their true selves. When you find out the truth, you have a choice, whether to stay and fight or to cut your losses and move on. I chose the latter. It's been painful, but it's also been freeing. I refuse to let her betrayal define my future. One thing I do know for sure is that I'll be okay. I might take some time to heal, but I will come out of this stronger and more cautious. There are still good people out there, and someday I'll trust again. But for now, I'll focus on myself, on getting better, and on making sure I never let someone betray me like that again. It's a hard lesson, but one I'll carry for the rest of my life. And honestly, I'm done with her. That chapter is closed.